Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Carl from thewhiskeycompanion.com. Today we're looking at whiskey overviews. This is Whiskey Overviews, the place where we explore whiskey from all around the world, give tasting notes, background of the distillery, availability, and whether it's worth your hard-earned money or not. Today we have a very special whiskey overview. Young versus old, or old versus new, whatever way you want to look at it. We're looking at Wild Turkey 101 versus Wild Turkey 8-year-old 101 from the 1980s. So I don't know if you can see here. If you can't, I might get a nice picture of it. But there's a number there, which is at the top, or at the bottom there. That number there is 89. So it's a bottle from 1989. And I have to say, I love the label on this. And if Wild Turkey want to come out with like a 101 retro label, I'd be all over that. Yeah, definitely. Look, it's just so nice. And even at the back there, it's really nice. And you'll notice straight away that this one is an 8-year-old age statement. This one has no age statement. So it just means that any of the whiskey that went in here was at least 8 years of age. But I have it under good authority that they were actually using whiskey up to like 14, 15-year-old whiskey. Because at the time when that was coming out, whiskey was kind of thrown by the wayside by clear spirits like gin and vodka. So they actually had a surplus of whiskey at the time and they had to get rid of it somehow. So they were like, well, 101 is doing well, or Wild Turkey is doing well. Let's throw it into that and put it into the blend, and there we go. So hopefully that happens again, because I don't know about you, but like the whiskey that's coming out now that has a decent age statement, it's expensive. So we're going to focus realistically on this one here, because this is one that's readily available and you can pick this up right now. It is distilled in the Wild Turkey Distillery in Kentucky, and it's 101 is the proof of the whiskey. There's nothing more to it, so it's 101 proof or 50.5% ABV. It's a high rye bourbon, and we do have the mash bill because American distilleries love giving the mash bill for their whiskey, which I think is great. The mash bill is 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% barley. This is readily available. You can get it online, pretty much anywhere in Europe. You can get it on Irish, or you can get it on Flavier if you're part of that as well. And it's any good off license or liquor store would have this in stock. You're talking in and around 30 to 40 euro in Europe. You're talking about 25 to 30 pounds in the UK, and you're looking in and around $25 in the States. So it's by no means an expensive whiskey. No, by no means a complete budget. You know, there is another Wild Turkey, the 81, which is 81 proof. So, and that one is on the lower end of the spectrum for budget whiskey, especially in the States. All right. And for those of you that are, don't know my magnificent impression there, that was of Matthew McConaughey, obviously. All right. And he was actually brought on as the celebrity endorsement or ambassador, I suppose, that they were calling him for Wild Turkey. This was a couple of years ago now. I'd say probably 2015, 2016. And he's actually done a pretty good job of it. Usually when you see celebrities endorse whiskies or spirits in general, or they have a stake in it, it tends to be not too good. But he's kind of been at the forefront of marketing and that aspect, rather than saying, oh, this is my whiskey, or this is the whiskey that you need to go for, and this is Matthew McConaughey, blah blah. So he's actually done a pretty good job, and they brought out a YouTube series not too long ago called it was like Turkey Talks or Turkey Tuesdays or something like that, and he went around the states, or it could have just been around Kentucky, and he was talking to people in their fields, and there was like different restaurants and a barbecue place where there was these two guys and they were from different gangs, and they came together and created a barbecue restaurant. And yeah, it was pretty cool, but it wasn't really anything to do with Wild Turkey. You would They were just drinking Wild Turkey while they were talking about it. But yeah, it was interesting. Uh, anyway, aside from that, so yeah, Wild Turkey has a pretty rich history. Goes all the way back to 1891, I believe it was. The Rippey family. The Rippey family began and built a distillery, and they started producing bourbon. And at that time, it was commonplace, like it was in Ireland at the time, that distilleries wouldn't bottle or brand their own whiskey. They'd send it out to bonders, and they'd bottle it and finish aging it and sell it themselves. So that's what happened then.
There was a bonder that was named Austin Nichols, and you might notice looking at the bottle here on the front of the label, it's bottled by Austin Nichols Company. And Austin Nichols, they were part of the bonding scene all the way up until 1942, when Austin Nichols bought it from the Rippey family. 3 decades later, so nearly 3 decades, they were bonders, and Nichols finally decided to buy the facility called Boulevard Distillery, which was where they were getting all their distillate, and that was in 1971. And then just after that, he changed the name to the Wild Turkey Distillery. So Nichols and Wild Turkey, by extension, must have been doing something right anyway, because they caught the eyes of the juggernauts of the spirit industry, Pernod Ricard. So they're the same people who own Jameson, Chivas Regal, Ballantine's, Glenlivet, and they bought them up in 1980. After that, the Campari Group acquired the distillery and Wild Turkey from Pernod in 2009, so just after the crash. Wild Turkey then started they built a new distillery and started distilling there, which was right beside the old distillery actually, and that was in 2011. And it actually sits where the old bottling took place, so it's quite a good full circle there. Things that definitely hasn't changed over the years is the distilling pedigree that's there. Jimmy Russell started in Wild Turkey back in 1954, and he, after 60 years and a Bourbon Hall of Fame inductee, he passed the reins on to his son, who had 35 years in tenure, and he's now the master distiller up until this day. So it kind of reminds me in a sense back to how Middleton used to be, where they had Max Crockett for many years, and then he handed it down to Barry Crockett. And I think that's a great story, and it's great to see that family lineage through a distillery, and they both know how to consistently deliver their bourbon for years to come. So anyway, let's get into this. Let's try the 101 first. We're gonna do a side-by-side impression, but makes sense to just start with this one first and give you a tasting notes on that, and then we'll do a side-by-side after that. So the nose on this, you're talking, it's a bourbon, and what do you generally expect from a bourbon? You're looking at corn, vanilla, that sort of stuff. You're looking at something that's kind of nice and easy to drink, and that's kind of what I expect from this in a sense. So on the nose, you get a lot of vanilla. Sweet corn is a huge proponent of this, and maybe some kind of oaky spice, and it yeah, that's kind of what you get on the nose. A little bit of the rye spice as well there, that is in the background. So let's give it a taste. Yeah, it it really dries out the mouth, and like you can really feel the heat. Like 50%, you definitely feel it, and it dries out your mouth, and that's generally what a high ABV will do to you. Once you get past that, you do get some like sweet notes, of vanilla, a lot of the oak spice, and even the rye spice comes through in a kind of earthy kind of way, for like from the like an earthy kind of grain type of flavor from it. So yeah, it's quite nice. It might scare off a couple of people because of the high ABV, and it can taste quite spicy or hot. There's a lot of pepper in there as well, so it's it's full bodied. Definitely stands up well in cocktails, or with ice. So yeah, it's really nice. And then the finish, I'd say, is quite short. As I said, it does dry your mouth out, and it kind of just leaves that spicy peppery note there, and the oak dominates as well. So I wouldn't say if it hangs around, but yeah, it's fairly short. But the other one now, the older version, and the main difference between these two would be the fact that this is an 8-year-old statement on it, and obviously that it was distilled by someone different, and from a different era. But you can see straight away that there's a huge difference in color between the two here, and like I don't know if you can see that properly there, but like the one from 89, it's kind of more mahogany, like going mahogany, and amber. And then the one on the 101, the new one, is golden hay kind of color. And yeah, let's dive in. And yeah, what you have to remember is the fact that this bottle I got was only about a quarter full or thereabouts, so there would be some sort of oxidation, but it's probably the best that you're gonna get this far down the line. Yeah, so there's a completely different nose on both of these, and yeah, there's no comparison really. Like the older version is a completely different whiskey. Like you could put these down and smell both of them, and you would think they're different whiskeys. There's a huge cherry note on the older one, this one here, and like that's what I would think quintessential bourbon is: full of cherry, vanilla, oakiness, and that's it. That's what I think of bourbon. And it just kind of it smells richer and more full bodied just off the bat than the newer one. The newer one kind of it leaves a bit to be desired. So let's give it a try. Very different whiskey. You wouldn't think they're the same. This one is kind of a syrupy type of texture to it, like kind of sugar water. There's oak that's been sweetened, kind of that sort of range. Kind of maple syrup, that sort of sweetness. Maybe some fresh leather, like new couch leather. there is the cinnamon spice, and like a bunch of cherry, and it just, yeah, like this like drinking some cherry. It's like drinking some cherry flavored whiskey. Like that cherry note, that quintessential bourbon cherry note is very prominent there, and you kind of get some sweet. I wouldn't say cocoa, but like chocolate chips. Like if you bite into a chocolate chip, that kind of flavor as well, and like it just feels more full bodied and rounded than the other one. Finish again doesn't stick around. It does dry your mouth out a little bit, but not as much as the other one. It's a lot more mellow. And to be honest, I'd probably go for this one over the other one any day of the week. And if they were making this, I'd be buying this definitely. Anyway, I hope that was insightful for you and maybe a bit helpful. And fair play to you if you got through my rants. And I hope that you learned something from this anyway. And until next time, I'm Carl. Sláinte.